Yo, what's your boy Ghost here, and today I'm bringing you guys another best class setups for the new Warzone update. Today we're going to take a look at the new best class setups for Season 6 update, which to be honest, I didn't even think this was going to happen, just because the new game is right around the corner, and this season is going to be way shorter than the ones that we had recently, and I'm just really, this caught me off guard. When they announced Season 6, bro, I was like, whoa, because in my last class setup video, I mentioned that might have been my last video in terms of class setups until the new game. Turns out I was wrong. But they made a couple of changes in this update, and we're going to talk about it. So let's get into it. And the first one we're going to take a look at is the M4, which might be a little surprise to you guys, but I think this gun will come into the meta just because the Cast 762, which is the current meta right now, ended up receiving a nerf in this update. And then, in my opinion, the backup to that would have been the M13B, which also received a nerf, which is kind of crazy because the M13B did not get the same attention that the Cast did at the beginning of the Season 5 Reloaded. The M13B did get a little bit of attention. It was meta for like one day, and then it got kicked out for the Cronin again. And then eventually we picked up the Cast 762, and we led that into this new season. But both of them getting nerfed means there might be a new weapon that gets put into the meta. I think the M4 could be that weapon. It's been really, really good, and quite frankly, I think it's in the same conversation as those other two. And only time will tell if that actually become meta. But I do believe this weapon right here will definitely see an increase of usage going forward in this update. Moving on to the next weapon. And here we have the Lochman Sub, which is a weapon that you shouldn't be surprised to see in this top 5 class setup. And most importantly, it didn't actually get nerfed in this update. The only Lochman that got changed was the Lochman Shroud, and that one got like nerfed in some aspects, buffed in some aspects. So there actually might be some attention there. There might be a chance that gun comes into the meta or something, even though it's burst. But I've seen some people put in work with it. That gun, or even some of the other guns that I'll talk about here shortly, got buffed. But I don't know. It could be interesting to see. I don't know if the buffs that they made in this update, however, will be enough to overthrow the Lockman Sub. But it's kind of funny that they didn't nerf this weapon, but they nerfed the M13B. Like, M13B, in my eyes, wasn't even really meta. Like, it was getting used a little bit more frequently. I've been seeing it a little bit more frequently, especially at the end of the season. Or, yeah, the end of the season. But the Lockman Sub's been here. It's been here for a long time. And, like, I understand they've nerfed it so many times already, but, like, this gun's still in control. Like, you have to do it again to get it out of the meta. But I guess at this point, they just gave up on it and decided they're going to let it rock. Which is understandable, but we might be seeing the Lockman Sub in meta for the remainder of the game, which I don't know how some of you guys may feel about that. I really don't care, but, you know, at the same time, I wish something new would come into the meta. And hopefully, with the next weapon that I'm going to talk about, that is possible. So, let's move into the next weapon. And for the next weapon, we have the Bass P, which at this point has become a regular on these videos just because this gun keeps getting buffed. And I keep thinking that with these buffs, that signifies a new era for the Bass P. I've been wanting the Bass P meta for quite some time. In this update, I would have to say this might be the chance. Like, this might be the time it becomes meta because the Lockman Sub didn't get changed. The Vel, the Vastnef, the ISO, all the top SMGs did not get changed, but the Bass did. And the Bass was already in a good place, in my opinion, before this update because it's been buffed 3 times already. So I think it's definitely was on the edge of overcoming some of these SMGs. And I think with this buff and the fact that none of the other SMGs changed, there might be a chance here that we see a Bass P meta finally after however long they've been trying. Because they've been targeting this weapon really, really heavy. They've been pushing this weapon to be meta, but us as a community have not accepted that. Hopefully this time we do accept it and it's better than the Lockman Sub. Only time will tell. But I do think now, even if it's not better than the Lockman Sub, I think it'll be better than some of the other SMGs like the Vastnef and the ISO. Those guns are obviously really, really good. But in my opinion, I think the Bass was already competitive to them. And the fact that they're ending, like the last time we saw changes to those 2 weapons were nerfs, I believe. And this weapon's been consistently buffed since that time. I think at this point, it may at least overcome those 2 SMGs. And then the Vel 46 and Lockman Sub, we're going to have to wait and see on how that turns out. But regardless, moving on to the next weapon. And here we have the Rap H, which I know might be a little surprise to you guys, but I do think now more than ever, this is the time for LMG to come into the meta. With a lot of the ARs getting nerfed, even though, we know nerfs don't really do much sometimes, but if this is the one time they decided to actually do something with these nerfs, there's a chance that the LMG could be into the meta. And the one I'm looking out for is the Rap H. There is a couple other candidates in the LMG category, but right now I would have to say the Rap probably is the better LMG than all of them. Or maybe even the HCR. One of those 2, in my opinion, would be the ones to come out of this LMG class setup or LMG category as the metas. But I don't know. We haven't really put LMG in meta for quite some time. The last time was obviously the RPK at the beginning of the game. But since then, I feel like there was a lot of opportunities to put the LMGs into metas. but it just never happened. So this is kind of a long shot just because we haven't done it this whole year. Maybe at the end of it, we actually put an LMG in the meta. I'm not saying that we should or shouldn't, but considering that we're trying to look for the best weapons, I would argue that the Rap H is definitely up there and should probably see some consideration for the meta moving forward. But with that being said, let's get into the last one. And there we have the Lochman 556, which I know may be a little controversial, but like I mentioned, I'm not really expecting the cast off in M13B to get necessarily nerfed to the ground. But if you guys remember, the Lochman 556 actually got buffed in the Season 5 Reloaded update, and I think the nerf to the other two weapons may be enough to put this weapon over them in consideration for the next meta. Obviously, like I mentioned in the last bit, I don't know if that nerf is gonna actually do anything. They are notorious for making nerfs that really don't do anything. They just put it on the patch notes, but nothing actually really happens. So there could be a chance that those two weapons still remain the meta. And if you guys remember the Cronin, like that whole ordeal, and even the Lochman Sub right now, like who knows what's gonna happen with these updates. But based off the information that we have in the patch notes, I do think that the Lochman and M4 are two weapons to look out for to potentially take over the meta. I already mentioned the Art Rap H for the primary. Like I think the secondary meta, that one is still kind of like about the same, still gonna stay the same. The primary is gonna be a little bit more interesting because even guns like the SL14 got a huge buff. Which if you guys remember about the SL14, I was like in season 4 where that was meta. Man, we could be in for another bad meta if it comes back into the meta because it got buffed significantly too. So there's definitely a lot of interesting things that are gonna happen throughout the season. We're almost to the new game though, so I don't know if this is gonna be as impactful. Like I don't know, at some point people are not gonna care anymore. So like, cause we're really reaching the end here, and yeah, man. But that's all I got for you guys. Hopefully these class setups help you in the new season 6 update. Help you guys get out there and get some dubs, get some high kill games, and yeah, man. But before we do leave this video, once if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. I'm on the road to 4,000, really close to 2.7. And if you do enjoy the video, hit that like button to let them out. Peace.